Welcome to the last panel of the second day. And though the last panel, this is going to be a rather exciting panel because we are going to have a conversation which is normally conducted outside in the forum about what are the real hard challenges which we are facing in this current, where we find ourselves today. So I'll be the agent provocateur. I'll be asking some provocative questions. And let me start by my first question. The question is very simple. The Paris Accord, 2015, 8 years ago. Question is, was the Paris Accord created for a different world, in a different time? And therefore, if it was created for a different world in a different time, are today, where we find ourselves, challenges, particularly with regard to supply chain management issues, both in the conventional and non-conventional energy, creating a situation which is becoming a barrier to many of the countries achieving the commitments which they did make during the past. And let me give the background. China. Today, 2011, the whole manufacturing capacities which were in Japan, in Europe, which were in even in the United States, particularly say, I'll give the example of solar, shifted wholesale, started shifting wholesale. Everyone was celebrating because it cut down costs. Yes, people say tariffs today, 60 tariffs fallen by 80%. They are down to 3 cents thanks to solar. Well, part of it, yes, is Moore's law in operation, but there's a senior side. The senior side being that it was strategic decision made by China, exactly as it did in steel, exactly as it did in cement some years. It created capacities of scale, scaled up production to level where they are today. And that is why you got everything from batteries to turbines, the entire value chain of solar PV manufacturing at cheap prices. That is what brought prices down. Not today, when suddenly that is being seen as a vulnerability. I don't see why, but it is being seen as a vulnerability. You to answer whether it is a vulnerability or not a vulnerability. If it is a vulnerability, how do nations reconfigure? And can they reconfigure? Is it possible to do without it? Let's start with you.
Thank you so much. I don't have the answers to any of those questions. Thank you for framing that question very provocatively. Definitely, it's a different world. It's a different world in terms of emissions, world in terms of global interconnectedness. It's a different world in terms of how evident climate risks are becoming. And I want to really talk about that a little bit. The fact that climate change itself is beginning to affect our energy supply and is beginning to affect our supply chain, particularly when you look at micro, small, and medium enterprises. Just to give an example, today is a very polluted day in Delhi. One of the recent studies has shown that that can affect solar output by as much as half in some parts. So even renewable energy is something that is getting affected by environment. We recently had the Glacier Lake outburst flood in Sikkim that affects hydropower. Wind power depends on monsoon winds, and in some years, monsoon winds have varied by as much as 40%, affecting wind power. In Thailand, in fact, the floods of 2011 affected far-reaching economies all the way to Japan because of the concentration of hard disk drive manufacturing in and around Bangkok. Chennai floods of 2015 led to 1,700 crores of losses for the Indian MSME. So with all of this, the climate change risks are affecting our energy supply, including new sources of energy, and certainly the micro, small, and medium enterprises, which constitute, perhaps in some sense, the most fragile, the weakest link in these global supply chains, which extend far and wide. Climate policy itself is posing a new risk. So as countries are trying to operationalize the Paris Agreement, they are introducing new kinds of policies. So in some cases, it could be positive. So if the EU says that it will not sell any new internal combustion engine vehicles from 2035 onwards, well, that could be a new opportunity for Indian car manufacturers. But then, as the previous session discussed, these kinds of responses could also take the form of unilateral measures like the carbon border adjustment mechanism. That may require a different sort of response from Indian steel manufacturers. The third level of risk, which is only beginning to be understood, is that as we have these long-term shifts, there will be macroeconomic changes. So we are highly dependent on fossil fuel tax revenues. As much as 35% of our tax revenue comes from that. That will get hit over the long term. But on the positive side, we will save on our oil import bill as we move from petrol and diesel vehicles, electric vehicles. And finally, I just want to end by saying that in all of this, there is the issue of the critical minerals that form the basis of these new renewable energy technologies. And there have been many different concerns raised as well as many different solutions that have been talked about. I'd be happy to talk about some of those possible solutions. But one thing we need to avoid as we are at the early part of this journey is to avoid further inadvertent environmental risks, for example, by looking at deep seabed mining. So that is also something that sort of brings the circle all the way around. That is, in order to try to solve one environmental problem, you may end up exacerbating another environmental problem, even while taking into account all of the economic concerns all along.
Thanks, Ulka. Glauco, let me turn to you. Ulka spoke about the climate risks which have arisen. Let me come to Brazil. Brazil is actually one of the most fortunate countries. I don't see even why you should be discussing energy transition. You're almost already there with the kind of grid you have. But this year, perhaps for the first time in 90, reservoir levels in Brazil fell to the extent that you had to start banking upon large amounts of thermal power. Tariffs shot up. They had to shoot up 7%, more than 7%, because you had to switch on to thermal energy. Now, as far as Brazil is concerned, Brazil is very rich in biofuels. Brazil is the second largest producer of biofuels, so much hydro. Brazil should be one of the first countries taking the transition. And yet you are so dependent on oil revenue. You are a great oil. You're the fourth largest. Huge production. So how do you see Brazil shaping up in transition? Do you have no supply risks?
I mean, that's a trick question, and I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity, and I would like to bring some points regarding Latin America perspective and Brazil's perspective on the energy transition. And I think it's important to mention that our energy supply is already renewable and clean for electricity generation. 85% comes from renewable sources, particularly from hydropower. But yet we have the challenges ahead, and Brazil still relies a lot on the revenues coming from exports, exploration, and oil drilling. It's a very important source of revenue for Brazilian import. And I think there is an opportunity for us, like to try to tap into these new markets concerning renewables, such as solar or wind, that we have been discussing in this conference for these 2 days. But we need to make sure that the regulatory rules and institutional rules in Brazil can be appropriate and attract foreign and also domestic investment for those sectors. I think we in Latin America, we are somehow blessed because we are rich in natural resources, and we don't have geopolitical tensions with our neighbors. So there is an opportunity to cooperate in terms of energy in the subcontinent. I mean, in South America, we have some projects with Argentina and Bolivia, and I think there is an opportunity. But I also would like to stress some political economy issues, because the sectors connected to the oil and the fossil fuels are still very important in Brazil. To begin with, the state company, it's a very powerful political and economic player. And somehow we are trying to make the state oil company a sponsor of renewable energies. not an oil company anymore, but an energy company that would be fostering other sources in a kind of a diversification of markets. That's a point I would like to make.
Anna, my question to you, I mean, the larger question is, yes, are we on track? Can we be on track in supply chain? But the twist I would like to, your perspective. See, Portugal, sitting in the middle of a huge crisis in Europe, yet was completely insulated, did not suffer the kind of pang the rest of Europe went through by the cutting off of Russian gas, because you had other sources. And the Iberian Peninsula actually not only remained isolated. Today, are you thinking of making that your strength and becoming the hub of gas exports as a link into the rest of Europe? Enable Europe to do the diversification you already have?
Thanks for the question. First of all, namaste. A warm welcome to all delegates and policymakers and experts, industries, participants, delegates. It's an honor, a great honor to be here in a vibrant and historically rich nation as India. For me, it's a great pleasure. So thanks, Samir, for the invitation. So I have a good news for you. Since last Saturday, yes, I have this special news to give to you. Portugal is a small country, 10 million people. But since last Saturday, as I was saying, we, the whole country, consume only clean energy. 100% of the energy consumed in Portugal is clean. It comes from aeolic, hydraulic, and yes, this is the main. I was thinking about the major.
And the first country to shut down coal-fired plants. You shut down into coal-fired plants.
So, saying that, I would like to say to you one thing. When the war starts in Ukraine, we have a problem with vulnerability and openness of some countries in Eastern Europe, like Germany, were very exposed to the energy of Russia. Portugal was one of the countries who doesn't have this problem. So, saying that, I start this brief presentation. I will be very straight to the point to give this good news. Portugal is consuming 100% of clean energy. So, my friends, it's possible. This is not a dream, it's possible. And Portugal is the example. And you can replicate and use this example. The second idea I want to give to you is, this is a question of, this is a big challenge. So, this is not a global, this is not a local issue. This is not a local problem. This is a global issue that demands global solutions. So we need to put our national sovereignty outside of the box, and we need to work together to this goal. So this is not a competition issues, as you said before. This is a cooperation, collaboration issue that demands all together, working together. But we need international cooperation, global solidarity, and I believe that we need trust, common trust between people and countries, of course. And we are looking for a new concept of energy security. So we need an holistic approach. So we cannot speak about only in energy transition. We need to speak about sustainability. So we need to reduce consumption, and we need to be more open to the change of our personal behaviors. That's why we need education, we need social sensibilization, and we need investigation and development. We need to work together. But our resilience, after the pandemic, we need to, and the conflicts between the countries, we get to a conclusion. To be more resilient, we need to search the solution inside of our borders. And you can learn outside, but you need to search inside. So you need to reduce your dependence from outside. That's what Portugal does. We look to our natural resources. We have the sea, we have the wind, and we have the sun. So we are using our natural resources, and this allows us to reduce our external dependence, first. And second, we will be more respectful for our resources, because I truly believe that everything is very well created, and all the resources we need regarding our geography and our environment are very near of us. So be very aware of that. And finally, we need willing. It don't matter if you have projects, we are discussing economy, you can discuss every solutions. Everything is possible, but if we don't willing for this change, nothing will change. And remind that we need to put economy, we need to put everything working for the humankind. So, in the backdrop of the majestic Himalayas and the serene Indian Ocean, let's remember that our shared goal is not just about powering our nations, but preserving our planet. Together, we can navigate the complexities of sustainability, supply chains, and geopolitics to build a resilient and inclusive future. So, dhanyavad for this opportunity to share and learn. Let's embark on this journey together. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for that boost that everyone needs. Here, let me turn to you. What are the key vulnerabilities which you see in Thailand? So Thailand is, at the moment, has a problem as far as import dependence, and is rising import dependence. You are having to import more oil, more gas, more coal. So for you, the transition actually becomes a factor as far as the stability of a future economy. Now, how are you moving towards it? And what are the challenges, both in supply chain management and financing the transition that you?
Well, thank you very much. Thailand is like every country. We're facing tremendous challenge from volatility of the world supply. We all know that fuel, as we know it, it's controlled by only a few countries, okay? And the price fluctuate because of the willingness to actually collude, if I may say so. Only a few countries. And because of that, we have volatility. And added to that, geopolitical conflicts, war, added to all of that. And how do we deal with that situation? All countries are facing similar challenge. Okay, in Thailand, we are lucky enough, we have a small pocket of oil, a little bit of reserve of gas, and nothing else. But we have beautiful sun. We have wind that is not medium range, not so strong. But we also have palm oil. We embark on gasohol and biodiesel way back. Since I was in government as the Prime Minister advisor in 1998, that's when we started the gasohol, okay, and biodiesel. And it's still running to this day. And thanks to our supply, ample supply of the raw materials. But the purpose of this meeting is to determine whether the transition is important or not important, and how do we face with that challenge, right? 10 years ago, we're still arguing whether it's important. Today, I think the whole world, including our countries and those of you who are here, already in agreement. We need to go through the process of transition. How fast can we go? I listened to the conference during the past 2 days. We're talking about limitation of financing. We're talking about 3 to 5 trillion problems. Yeah, we do have that. So the issue is, how do we go fast when we have so little money to go by? Isn't that the key thing? You can never print enough, notes or money to deal with the problem that is so large. How do we deal with that? This is the issue that I went to speak at COP, which one in Paris before that. That's the way we have to think. And we cannot think that all of this is going to be done by development bank alone. All of this will have to be done by government alone. The only way, the only solution is, first of all, stop talking rhetoric is enough. Start doing. If we start acting on this problem as much as we talk about as rhetoric, I think we pretty much be way ahead of this game at this point. Now, in Thailand, I give you an example of Thailand. When the whole business itself is not financially bankable, you know what we did? We make it bankable. We're not just go out and try to find the money to build it by the government through fiscal policy. No. We make it bankable. In so doing, for example, we provide adders for biogas, biomass. Adder meaning if the electricity rate is so much dollars or cents per unit, to make it financially viable, if we have to add another 5 cents to it, we do that. So all the banks, all the private sector, they jump into the game. And the government will have the burden of being a mediator and creator of bankable business. And that's how we go fast, okay? And we will never allow development bank to compete with commercial bank. On the contrary, we use development bank to co-finance with the commercial bank. We will not go the route of trying to make exception of the rules of commercial bank, but we make development bank pay the difference. So in short, if they need soft loan to make it viable, we subsidize the difference of the interest rate. So it means we can spend maybe $2, $3 to make an impact to $100 of investment. Isn't that a great idea? So my message to you is that you have to challenge yourself by saying that you can do it. You can act on it, but make the business bankable and get private sector involved. Another issue that you asked throughout the conference is, oh, can we be the regional hub and all of that? Yeah, if you want to be a hub, be it. It's your choice. But are you ready for being a hub given your infrastructure? In Thailand, we are connected to Indochina. And in ASEAN, we talk about electricity grid, gas grid. But during good times, we stop working on it. So we're very slow. And then we start having crisis. Then we start talking about it again. So this is the one thing that is always causing each and every country and government problems, is the continuity of good projects. We won't do it until hell breaks loose, Now, I think in Thailand...
But can I have a quick follow-up question? You talk of finance, and this is for all panelists. We are running out of time.
Okay,
And
sorry.
So what I'll do is I'll give all the panelists just about one minute to respond before I open the floor up for discussion, because we're really running out. The question is, talking about finance, looking at possibilities of supply chain disruptions, what does each one of you feel? Is supply chain disruption today becoming, we keep talking about finance is lying around in pension funds, trillions of dollars lying around, people are not investing, how to get them to come in and put money into big climate projects. But the question is, if there are supply chain risks, and supply chain risks are being seen magnifying in the next because of geopolitical tension, is that not becoming one of the major reasons why money will not be flowing to green projects? You can start if you want to respond.
Okay. If any one of you can predict the volatility in the next 5 years, you show up your hands. Things are changing very quickly, and you have to adapt. The supply chain changed because of geopolitical conflicts. Sometimes it changed because of natural disaster that is totally unexpected. And in this world of the climate change impact, in Thailand, we're facing it. We cannot even predict where the rain will fall because it go off the chart in many locations. So we have to be prepared for that. And some of them go the route of self-serving, when self-sufficient. And you start mobilizing investment in creating the products for supply chain. But some of them, then the whole supply chain has to be rethink. And it's changing right now as we speak because of what's happening in the world. And I think we have to all be prepared for the change that is so unexpected and is so unpredictable.
Loco.
Yes, I would like to stress again the idea of diversification of sources of energy. I think it's one of the main landmarks in terms of fostering renewable energies and also decreasing the risks of volatility in oil and fossil fuel markets. I think it's easier said than done, but several countries have already started that process, that policy process. And I would like to mention as well, Brazil is one of the beginners of the fossil of the blending of fuels with the ethanol and the gasoline many decades ago, and it was a first step to deal with the volatility back in the 70s. I'm old enough to remember that. So diversification is an issue, and we should be prepared. But we are talking about huge supply chains and huge economic sectors that require different sources of inputs. And concerning, for instance, electrical cars, electrical vehicles, we think it's an alternative to deal with the issue of the over-reliance on fossil fuels. And again, I would like to bring the attention to Latin America and to South America, which has other panels, other panelists have already mentioned that we have lithium in Bolivia, in Argentina, and Brazil, but we need to be able to build that industries, automobile industries that are able to build electrical engines. It's a point that some panelists on these days have already talked about industrial green policies. And this is an issue, this is an important point in Brazil these days and in other countries, in other regions as well. So there are programs to incentivize the innovation in terms of automobile production. But again, we should be reliant on different sources of energy as well on different sorts of transportation.
So basically, diversify the energy basket as much as you can. Ulka.
No, I found your question a little bit, I struggled a bit with it because these risks are not static. They're changing, and they're changing because we are adapting to them. So some of the thoughts that I had, I totally endorse your point about diversification. If you take the example of the Texas freeze, for example, it was very much about diversification, but the lesson from that, but also the lesson from the Texas freeze and from the California wildfires, which led to the bankruptcy of PG&E, was that this is a predictable risk. This is a known risk now. Climate risks are happening, and you can weatherize, you can prepare for them, and if you don't, you'll be held accountable. There are ways in which one can be nimble, and the example that I always like to give is that of farmers from Rajasthan, who, when they found that the fracking of shale rock requires guar phalli, guar gum, they started just growing, made a killing growing guar phalli, guar beans. Of course, China came along the next year and developed a synthetic substance. So yes, the situation keeps changing, but one can be innovative. I mean, if lithium is a limitation for batteries, sodium batteries are being discussed and now. So I think with all of this, there are many different ways in which one can respond
Supply
to these
chain
risks.
risks are entirely manageable. Anna, we need your boost also. Give us that.
So I'm not. I disagree, because I think the money is not the secret here. Look at Portugal. We are not rich. We don't have fuel oil. We don't have gold. Nothing. We just have water, sun, and wind. So we look to this and we change our behaviors. We get the private sector to produce, to change the resources, and we use our geography to respond to this, to answer to this problem, to this question. So I'm not. I'm a dreamer, so you can see if Portugal can do it. I'm sure you can do it. But I would like to remind you on another thing. It's very important to recycling. We are doing this also in Portugal. We are changing from plastic through paper or another. We are trying to develop more sustainable products, trying to using another way of behaving. So in the end of the day, is all about the willing. If you want to change, we can change. And money, of course, is not an issue. As I said to you, Portugal is the example of you don't need money to do that. You just need to use what you got. And now we are selling energy because we are consuming less than we are producing. So this is a good example. Use fiscal penalties. So another advice, if the government wants, it can use some fiscal penalties to oblige or to, it's not, we cannot see these issues like an obligation, a bad thing. We need to see these kind of issues, security issues, like energy issues, more like the humankind. We need to be very socializing with this new theme. So
Thanks. With that, can we just collect a couple of questions? I don't have time, both together. Short, please. Come straight to the question.
Yeah, thank you. My question is to Ms. Dos Santos. You mentioned about money not being an object in sustainability and green energy, and how Portugal has done it, as you say, 100% renewable energy. But what are your thoughts on the bottlenecks created by CBAM, which is implemented by the European Union, and its effects on developing nations like India, which kind of bottlenecks the affordability of products? As you know, technology is important in this sector, and availability is another thing that is important. So what are your thoughts on the bottlenecks created by such policies? Thank you.
That's a long question, short answer.
So I believe that speaking with everyone, because the impact of my behavior doesn't affect only me. I truly believe that if I think on that, if I thought that my behavior could not affect someone in the South, I will not change my behavior. Why I'm changing? So we are truly committed with this willing. So we believe if this is your goal, you can do it. So it's not a question of money, it's not a question of, it's more a question of contagious others to work together. It's a commitment. We don't have borders in this issue. This is like the message of G20, one heart, one family, one planet, one family, one heart. So we are all together, one heart, one family. It doesn't matter. We are all human, and we need to solve this, like I said before, with global solutions. Trust each one. I need to trust you, and you need to trust me. Otherwise, we are reading protocols, and we will have a new meeting, global meeting, G20 meeting, and we will not get to any solution. So do what Portugal has done. Work.
Last question.
You talked about the diversification, and you gave an example of electric vehicles. Now, the way the electric vehicles are swamping the developing world's market, there would be a huge need of energy, electricity, for running these electric vehicles. And then when you talk of the huge need of sudden increase in the requirement for the electricity and having no other resources, you will have to probably develop again, depend on the fossil fuel. So do you foresee that problem coming up very
Now,
soon?
where do you get the power for all your EVs? If you're going electric power for EVs, what are the source of that power?
The source of that power of EVs, I mean, there is.
Is it green? Is it brown? Is it black?
I think it's green. There is new technologies, disruptive technologies coming up, and again, I think that the EVs are not a panacea, something that will help the emissions alone. But I would like to stress the point of congestion in cities. We can change the fossil fuel cars to electric cars, but we still will have some problems in infrastructure. So I don't believe, I myself particularly, not talking in the name of the Brazilian government, but diversifying the source of transportations, particularly in big cities, is something important. So I hope to have responded somehow. Thank you.
So thank you everyone for that great panel. And we have concluded that supply chain issues are manageable. There are solutions to whatever the problem exists in supply chain. The issue is to just power ahead and go on, find the money for it. Thank you.